Over the years, Tesla has undoubtedly done a lot to lower the cost of and increase the availability of their vehicles. Lower starting prices, cheaper trim options, and increased availability of the EV tax credit have made access to an electric vehicle easier than ever before. Still, often when we discuss what it is like to acquire and drive a Tesla, it's often from the perspective of somebody who wants to purchase and own one of these vehicles. There are a lot of reasons why outright ownership, or a loan, might not make sense for you, but there is another option for getting behind the wheel of a brand new Tesla: leasing. Today, we're going to break down all of the steps for leasing a Tesla vehicle and discuss whether leasing may or may not be the best option for you. So with that in mind, let's get into it. If you're looking to get a new Tesla vehicle, then getting one under a lease has probably crossed your mind. Still, for some people who have always made it the habit of purchasing or financing a vehicle, or just don't have much experience getting a car at all, a lease may seem like a foreign option. Essentially, you can think of a lease as a long-term, fixed-rate rental. You lease the car from a dealership, or in this case, directly from Tesla, for a specific length of time, usually ranging from 24 to 36 months. During your time with the vehicle, you will be given a mileage allowance per year. It often isn't particularly high, but you can pay more per mile to continue driving it past that point. Once the lease is up, you return the vehicle and either lease a new car or purchase something else. In some ways, leasing can be a very flexible way of having a car for a while, but it definitely has its benefits and drawbacks depending on your lifestyle and the relationship you have with your car. It might be helpful to think of leasing a car as being pretty similar to renting an apartment versus owning a home. While there are certain freedoms that you trade when you decide not to purchase outright, you make up for it with a certain flexibility that comes with just renting for a while. When you have a vehicle leased, maintenance and general repairs are covered by the leasing company, versus if you own it, you have to pay for all the maintenance. Teslas generally have one of the lowest costs of ownership of any brand, so it's not as bad as many other cars, but those costs can still add up. Certain larger repairs for Tesla can also be very expensive, and those will often be covered too with a lease. This way, unless you damage the car abnormally, then all the normal wear and tear will be handled for you. When you lease a vehicle, you also have a lot of freedom at the end of the term. If you are someone who is always interested in having the latest and greatest vehicles, then a lease will allow you to upgrade very easily. Say you were interested in getting a Tesla right now, but deep down you want to wait for the upcoming Model Y refresh. A good middle ground could be to lease a Model Y now, and then trade it in for a new model at the end of your term when that refresh is available. Leasing is also great if your living situation might be a bit more temporary. Say you've moved to a new place for work or school and only foresee being there for a few years. It might be easier to just lease a car for your time there and not be tied down to it in the end. While you do get certain freedoms with car ownership, the flexibility of leasing can be a very attractive option for many. Conversely, leasing a car also has many of the same downsides as something like renting an apartment. You won't be allowed to modify or customize your car to the same degree that you could with a car that you own, and it does have the mileage limit. Some drivers might be put off by the notion that you will ultimately be putting a lot of money towards a car that you won't own at the end of the term. Your payment will ultimately be a lot less per month when you lease the car, but in the end, you will have to give that car back. A lot of leases will give you the option of purchasing the car at the end of your term, but Tesla, for whatever reason, does not offer this. In the past, they've said this is to build up their fleet of robo-taxis, but it seems like they just prefer to resell them. So if you really liked your car and wanted to either customize it or keep it past the lease window, then leasing will have prevented you from doing that. While leasing a Tesla specifically, there is also the question of FSD. On Tesla vehicles, you have the option of either subscribing to or outright purchasing access to the full self-driving software. You can still buy FSD for $8,000, but at the end of the lease, you have to give the car back, and leased vehicles are not eligible for an FSD transfer. So if you are planning on leasing and want FSD, then going for the subscription is really the only way that it will make sense financially. Subscribing is only $99 per month right now, and the longest available term is 36 months, which equals close to $3,600 if pricing stays the same. Since you can't buy the vehicle out at the end of your lease, then you'd be wasting almost $4,400 by buying it outright. So once you have decided to lease a vehicle from Tesla, what comes next? First, you'll place your order through the Tesla website in the same way that you would if you were buying a car, only this time you will naturally click on Lease. From there, you will have to submit an application to Tesla to finance the lease. To do this, you will have to sign into your Tesla account, go to the section marked Payment Method, and then select Finance and then Lease. From there, you will select Tesla as your financier and confirm all of the specifics of your lease agreement. You will need to confirm your name, date of birth, address, social security number, verify your employment status, and supply your income information. Once you submit your application, you should hear back from Tesla very quickly, although it could take up to 48 hours to hear back. This application doesn't have any associated fees, but you will need to do at least one hard pull of your credit score. If you are approved, you will then have to accept the offer inside the Tesla app. From there, a Tesla advisor will reach out to you to start scheduling the delivery process. If you are denied, however, Tesla will be in touch to discuss what you should do next. If approved, you have a 60-day period in which to schedule taking delivery of your Tesla vehicle, or else the offer will expire and you will have to apply again. At least 24 hours before your scheduled delivery date, you will have to sign your lease agreement and any other documents through your Tesla account. On the day of your delivery, you will need to have your proof of insurance before you can take possession of your car, and then from there, lease payments can be made online through your Tesla account. In order to qualify for a Tesla lease, you are going to want to make sure that your credit score is in good standing and that you will be able to afford the payments. Tesla doesn't publish the exact thresholds to be eligible for one of their leases, but we can make some assumptions based off of standard industry practices. At minimum, most companies will want your gross income to be 3 times higher than your monthly payment. In addition, the leasing company will prefer it if you have a higher credit score, with 700 being a good threshold to aim for. If your score is lower than that, you may not necessarily be declined, but often the company will want either a larger down payment or even a higher monthly payment. In their leasing instructions page, Tesla specifically says, quote, "In the event that your application is denied, a member of the Tesla team will contact you within 1 business day of the decision to discuss next steps." In a lot of cases, Tesla is going to want to work with you to get you behind the wheel of a vehicle, and if there is wiggle room, they're likely going to want to help you find it. However, if your income or credit just isn't where it needs to be right now, then know you might have some trouble qualifying for a lease. There are a few other details worth mentioning if you're interested in buying a Tesla. For one, these vehicles can only be used for personal driving, and you can't lease them as a business for transport or to then rent out. If for whatever reason you can't or don't want to continue the lease, you can transfer it to another person after 3 months. That third party will need to have their credit approved as well, and you can't have fewer than 13 payments left on your car before transferring it. Registration and titling for the vehicle is handled through Tesla, so if you are planning on moving, then you will need to alert them so that they can handle all of the necessary re-registration for you. In addition, there are certain insurance requirements that you have to meet in order to take possession of the car. You will need to acquire a policy that has a number of specifics detailed by Tesla. As an added benefit, your lease will automatically come with gap insurance provided by Tesla. Teslas are known for already having pretty expensive insurance rates, and leasing a car can often raise those rates even higher compared to ownership. Thankfully, Tesla does offer their own insurance, which can bring their rates down to quite a bit lower than the competition, but for now, Tesla insurance is only available in 12 states. So if you are interested in leasing a Tesla, then you may be wondering how to approach actually starting the process. At the time of making this video, you can currently lease most trims of every Tesla vehicle, except for the Cybertruck, which can only be purchased outright. To start the process, we'll run through the available trims for each vehicle and some of the costs associated with that. With most of these cars, we can assume a base down payment of $3,000 for a 36-month term and a yearly limit of 10,000 miles. That will be our starting point, and then we'll break down how changing those factors can impact pricing. The Model Y SUV is Tesla's most popular vehicle, and probably the one that a lot of customers will be most interested in leasing. Currently, you can only lease the long-range all-wheel drive model for $499 a month and the performance all-wheel drive model for $599. Those prices don't factor in Tesla's estimated gas savings per month, but they are still quite a bit lower than the estimated finance cost of $796 and $857 per month for each model respectively, over a 60-month term. Of course, it's tough to directly compare those two because in one case you're giving the car back, and in one case you're keeping it and then could sell it. Currently, you cannot lease the long-range rear-wheel drive version of the Tesla Model Y, which is actually the trim with the longest available range. If we multiply the lease price out over the 36-month period and add in the down payment, then the available trims work out to be $20,963 and $24,463 respectively. Both of those prices work out to be less than half the baseline MSRP of $44,990 and $51,490 respectively for these cars. The Model 3 is Tesla's latest vehicle, and it brings a ton of great features and improvements over its predecessor. The Model 3 is available to lease in 3 trims today: the rear-wheel drive model for $299 a month, the long-range all-wheel drive model for $449 a month, and the performance model for $649 a month. For comparison, the estimated financing cost comes out to be $610, $752, and $878 per month, respectively, for a 60-month loan in those cases. Like the Model Y, you cannot lease the long-range rear-wheel drive option. Again, if we multiply the lease price out over the full 36-month period, it works out to $13,763 for the rear-wheel drive model, $19,163 for the long-range all-wheel drive, and $26,363 for the performance trim. Those all work out to be considerably lower than the MSRP prices of $38,990, $47,490, and $54,990 respectively, with the rear-wheel drive model being an especially good deal. Of course, though, you're talking about keeping a car and giving a car back, and there's also the factor of a tax credit subtracting from those prices when you're buying the car if you qualify. Last up are Tesla's most luxury vehicles, the Model S and Model X. These cars are among Tesla's most expensive options, and a lease could be a good way to experience them without having to pay their full value. Both trims of the Model S and X are available to lease, so you don't have to miss out on any options that you may want. Unlike Tesla's cheaper vehicles, the recommended down payment for a Model S or X lease starts at $7,500 down for a 36-month period and a 10,000-mile limit. The Model S sedan can be leased in its all-wheel drive configuration for $1,139 a month, or you can get the record-breaking Plaid package for $1,389 a month. With an equivalent down payment of $7,500, financing these vehicles would cost $1,344 and $1,637 per month for a 60-month loan term, respectively. Over the 36-month term, you will have paid $48,504 for the all-wheel drive and $57,504 for the Plaid model. Comparatively, the MSRP for those models is $74,990 and $89,990 respectively. The Model X SUV can also be leased in its all-wheel drive configuration for $1,209 a month or $1,469 for its Plaid Performance package. With an equivalent $7,500 down payment and a finance period over 60 months, you can expect to finance these vehicles for $1,442 and $1,735 per month, respectively. For a 36-month loan term, having one of those vehicles will set you back $51,024 and $60,384, respectively. Like with all of these vehicles, that comes in quite a bit less than the MSRP, which is about $80,000 and $95,000. Those are ultimately just the starting prices for all of these vehicles, and there are some factors that you can adjust in your lease agreement that will change your monthly price. For example, you can adjust your down payment up or down, and that will consequently change your monthly payment. On the Model 3 rear-wheel drive, Tesla recommends you put $3,000 down for a 36-month term, and that gives you a monthly payment of $299 a month. You can lower your down payment all the way down to $0, and that will raise your monthly rate up to $390 a month. Over the course of the 36 months, this will raise your total paid amount up to $14,040 instead of $13,763. That's not a huge difference, but if you can't afford a down payment in the moment, it will save you a bit in the long run. You can also choose to adjust the length of your lease period or the number of miles that you are allowed to drive in a year. The same rear-wheel drive Model 3 that we just discussed with the $0 down payment would cost $485 a month for a 24-month loan term, and then would go up to $531 to be able to drive 15,000 miles per year. $531 a month for 2 years works out to be $12,744, which is only a bit less money than the full 36 months, but for one less year of having the vehicle. All of these factors can be adjusted and will all play a part in the amount of money that you pay in the long run. How long you want this vehicle, your desired monthly payment, and how much you want to pay in the end all determine what you should set those factors at. If you decide to pursue a lease, then you'll want to play with these settings to see what fits your needs and budget best. Keep in mind that in addition to the base cost, there will be additional fees and taxes on the vehicle depending on where you live. If you're interested in getting a new Tesla but ownership may not make sense for you due to all of the reasons that we've talked about today, then getting a lease could be a good option for you. It's also worth noting that this option isn't for everyone. If you are someone who drives your car a lot and expects to rack up miles on it, then leasing will not make much sense. The average American drives around 13,500 miles per year, and Tesla only has options between 10,000 and 15,000 miles. For a lot of people, that will be enough, but the higher mileage option will increase your rate, and every mile driven over your limit will cost an additional 25 cents. That's not a lot on face value, but it can add up fast if you're really driving a lot. There are a ton of factors to consider when making this decision, and it's best to really weigh all of these variables before deciding whether to lease or not. If leasing was something that you were considering, then hopefully this video was able to help you make a more informed decision. That's all for today, so in the meantime, if you want to see the latest vehicles coming from Tesla in the future for 2025, you can check out that video linked up here or in the description below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.